Welcome to another edition of Bases and Balls with Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus. Kind enough to join us today, of course, brought to you by Nika IBEW. Rosie, we took on the Padres earlier this week, and Mike Clevenger got the start for the Padres, his first start in quite some time. Did well, but I wanted to hit the rewind a bit on this trade with the Padres, because when it happened, we got a bunch of guys that a lot of people didn't know about from the Padres, but when it's all said and done, we got like 5 starters and maybe our second best starting pitcher out of this whole thing. And I bring that up because sometimes people don't understand trades are for the long haul, especially when you look at the Guardians. And I thought maybe from a broadcaster's perspective, you could really paint this picture of this trade, which right now, I'm not saying it's not good for the Padres, but certainly it's been good for us Guardians.
No question. And you know, Ray, you look at quantity and quality. Obviously, Cal Quantrill's established himself as a really good starting pitcher. So even if you just stop right there, it looks great. But Josh Naylor's been a real steady contributor. And it's great to see him back. Came out through with a huge hit in the game 2 on Wednesday night. So I think they look at him as a real good piece for things moving along. And now Owen Miller has come to the forefront. He was part of that. You still have Gabriel Arias and Joey Cantillo. Arias we've seen in the major leagues already, and Cantillo, they still hold out hope that he could get there as a pitcher. And Austin Hedges behind the plate, has been such a key for them. So it really has looked good, and it could get even better if Arias and Cantillo make it to the major leagues. So, I don't think it's done from the evaluation process from a Guardians point of view just yet. And again, on the other side, you hope that Clevenger can give them a good season because he just hasn't been healthy to help them since the trade, really.
Mm-hmm. You talked about Josh Naylor. And this is a guy who had the horrific injury last year, but has steadily come back. And you mentioned good at bats. He's using the whole field. I love his energy, the versatility, first base, swinging out the outfield. He brings a passion to the plate, and I love his at bats. And I love it when Tito sent him to the plate in a pinch hitting role in game 2. But talk about this guy, because we only saw him a half a year last year. Before the injury, this guy's putting together a nice start for us.
He sure is. And it's not easy because most of what he was doing was rehabbing his leg. And then when he did go to work on his swing, he kind of had to be careful because, I think a lot of hitters, they're going to lean on that front leg a little bit. And he had to be careful with that. So it actually allowed him to work on some things with his hands and just how he positions himself with his swing. And you kind of touched on it. I don't think he's swinging as hard. Like at times before the injury, man, I mean, he'd swing out of his helmet. He swung so hard. He's had to temper that down a little bit because of the injury, and it's working. So he's trying to stay with that. He's got enough power where he doesn't have to, swing as hard as he can to hit the ball a long way. So it's nice to see. He's kind of taken a really tough physical situation and made the most of it and might be a better hitter coming out on the other side of it.
Well, you look at our infield, Rosie, with Simenes, Rosario, Ramirez, especially second, short, and third. Not only are those 3 giving us offense, but really nice gloves through the part of that infield, something that, our defense maybe let us down a little bit last year. I like these guys in the infield with these gloves.
Well, Jose Ramirez, we talk so much about the offensive production, but he plays a really good third base too. And Andres Simenes, it was fun to see him last weekend in Oakland when they moved him over to shortstop with Rosario nursing a minor injury. He played a great shortstop. That's his position. He grew up being a shortstop, idolizing Omar Vizquel growing up in Venezuela. So he's a shortstop. And I think when he goes and plays second, you don't quite see the range that you do when he plays short, but obviously he can play both at a very, very high level. And that's so important when you have good pitching to back it up with good defense.
It's Bases and Balls with Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus, brought to you by Nika IBEW. We saw a lot of it this week against the Padres in the doubleheader, Rosie, the bullpen. And we're getting some performance there from Sam Hedges and Clase's been terrific at the back end and some of the middle guys. The bullpen seems to be rounding in the shape. Tito's starting to find some roles with these guys. Talk about the bullpen right now, because this is an area of a baseball team for many, many years. It's so tough to predict. It's so tough to put together. And basically by the midway point of the season is when you come together with your bullpens. But talk about this unit.
Some good surprises. You mentioned Sam Hedges, and a former starter who's been moved to the pen, and his stuff is playing up a little bit, and he's really enjoying it. That might be half the key. But he's embraced it, so that's good. Anthony Goes has given them some good innings as a really young reliever in the game, but an old veteran major leaguer who used to be an outfielder. But Trevor Steffen's been really good, not coming out of nowhere, but building off of the second half of last season. And then you have your mainstays in Emmanuel Clase and Brian Shaw, of course, and Nick Sandlin's back. He was injured at the tail end of last year. There's another good arm in that pen. So they have some good things going on down there. There's still some inexperience, and occasionally you see some of the relievers have a tough time. But I think for the most part, they've made some great progress, and I think the team's pretty happy with where they're at right now, bullpen wise.
Rosie, to wrap it up, the weekend, the Blue Jays at Progressive Field. You're going to see some old friends up there, from GMs to team presidents with the Blue Jays. And this is a young team that really has some talent.
Yeah, they're deservedly so. I think a lot of people think they could be a dark horse to run the table all the way through to the end of October. They got to get there first. And I think they found that out last year, missing the postseason by a game. But they have some of the best young talent in all of baseball, and they've complemented that with some key trades and acquisitions with some veteran players. So offensively, they're a real handful to deal with. And now their pitching is starting to catch up to that too. And it makes for a very scary series when you play the Blue Jays for 4.
Well, Rosie, we're looking forward to the call tonight. We'll have it at 6:10 against the Jays, and of course through the weekend with the Jays as well at Progressive Field. Bases and Balls with Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus. Rosie, as always, thank you for the time, my friend, for joining us, and we'll get back together next week with you.
You got it, Ray. Thank you.